regular meeting of council. The city of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory, upon which we gather with gratitude. So we have the minutes of the council meeting held December 5th and the approval of the council meeting agenda. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that the council agenda include the following recommendations be approved, that the minutes of the council meeting held December 5th, 22 be adopted, that the December 19th, 2022 council meeting agenda be approved? I have a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Beal and Councillor Wood seconded. Any errors or omissions or discussions? Any items to be added to the agenda? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you so much. Delegations. We have one delegation here this evening. The Parksville Curling Club. Request for financial support, a presentation by P. Shantz and K. Beaudry, co-chairs of the Parksville Curling Club, to request financial support in the amount of $1,000 to assist in hosting the 2023 BC Provincial Masters Men's and Ladies Curling Championships. You have 10 minutes for the presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor O'Brien and councillors up there too. I'm Penny Shantz, and this is Bruce Beaudry. He's on. Can I stand straight up and you can hear me? Is that so? I don't like.
You're quite clear
okay?
from where you are. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We are representing the Parksville Curling Club. We're on the Masters Committee. I am the past president of the Curling Club as well. I'd first like to start by stating that it's a little bit of history on the club, because when I've presented in the past, it was a different council, except for maybe Adam. We've been in the city park since 1991. And originally we were owned by, our building was owned by the RDN, and the property, of course, is owned by the city. In 2020, we went to the RDN and we changed that so that the city owns both the land and the building. It's the old ice hockey rink. So when they changed that over, we took it over. And we are self-supporting. We don't ask, well, I guess we're here asking for $1,000, but as far as maintenance and everything that goes with the building, we do it all ourselves. A few years ago, we were required a new chiller in there, which was $120,000, and we raised the money. We had no outside support for it. So just to give you a little history there, we do pretty good. We have about between 350 to 500 members at the club, and we're very active with 3 or 4 leagues a day. I don't know if any of you are curlers, but if you're not, I'm willing to give you a lesson. Right now we have a 5-year lease with the city of Parksville. And so we're used to hosting these events. We've had over 9 events in Parksville, and they range from the men's provincials, the ladies provincials, the mixed, we have stick championships, etc. And this year we decided to host the BC Masters, which is February 21st to the 26th. And that'll bring in, we're hoping for 20 teams from across the province will come, and they'll play for the opportunity to represent BC, win BC. And from there, they'll go on to a Canadian championship in New Brunswick. I'm proud to say that I am that Team BC last year, and I won the Canadian championship a month ago in Winnipeg. And I have traveled all over this country playing in these types of championships. When I'm at the championships, I get ideas on how they're running it and what we could do it, how we can do it better here to host. So one of those ideas, just to give you an idea, was we would, instead of having an opening banquet at the curling club where we host all the teams in there. And in COVID in the last couple of years, that's been a little bit scary, because at the start of the event, at some of those at those two events I was at in BC, COVID showed up at the end of the week. So I went to Sault Ste. Marie and in a seniors competition, and instead of a banquet, they gave out gift cards to all the teams. And they said, we've gone to our local restaurants and we've asked them to host you. And so go and have your opening banquet with another team if you'd like, or with a host committee. Go to those restaurants and visit our town. And I thought it was a great idea. So we actually went out to the restaurants in Parksville, and a lot of them loved the idea. Lefties, the Rod and Gun gave us $1,000. So the Rocking Horse is out in Nanoose, but they've also come on board, and there's a few other ones. Happy Jack's, the new one in Oceanside. So they're all on side. So what we're going to do is we're going to give these teams that come in here, promote our local restaurants. These teams, there should be about, if we get 80 of them, they come with their families. The Masters event is 60 and over. So they come with their spouses, they come with family support, and they come with their fans from from the local area. So we're looking forward to doing that for them. We are also currently investigating an opportunity to show the economic benefit from hosting these events. We've had 9 of them and we don't really know, but what we do know is that the city of Quesnel hosted a similar event for men's and ladies back in 2019 prior to COVID. And their benefit showed $182,000 economic benefit to the community. I was up there and it was very successful. So those are just some numbers. So if you take the fact that we've hosted 9 already, we're looking at some pretty good numbers there. Let's see. What else do I have for you? So we're requesting $1,000 to assist us with the hosting. We have a very conservative budget, and that was sent to you late in the day today. In the past, I've been asked for that, so I thought I got to get that out to you so that you maybe have it in front of you. We have a couple of title sponsors. Setter and Associates have helped us with a $2,000 as a title sponsor, and of course, Rod and Gun with $1,000. We also have several Friends of Curling sponsors, and so we're looking pretty good. And we're planning some other fundraising activities as a silent auction, 50-50 during the event. We don't charge people to come in to watch. We do that for the men's and ladies, but the Masters, and we're over 60, and if you want to come watch us, it's free. So that's the presentation, and thank you for letting me present that tonight and for considering it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Are you?
Do you have any
Okay.
questions?
Okay, I was waiting for the second part of the speech. Are there questions for the delegation from council? Councillor Wood.
Through the chair, how many people, you probably said this and I might have missed it, but how many people attend these provincial masters, men's and ladies championships?
If we're looking at 20 teams, there's 4 on each team. So that's 80.
Mhm.
Plus Curl BC sends about 10 people out.
Okay.
Then we have a whole umpires and timers and a lot of people.
Sure. Thank you.
Mhm.
Councillor Beal.
There we go. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through the mayor to our presenters today. Yeah, I do have a few questions. Some of them I prepared ahead of time and you've answered a few of them. So thank you for
Good,
that.
thank you.
So you've hosted events before. That's wonderful. Now I'm curious, you've come before council requesting funds, but this is not a request to be a sponsor in any way. I'm just
You
wondering
would be
what
a
the
sponsor. You would be our City of Parksville sponsor. Yes.
Okay, that wasn't clear in what you had
Yeah.
presented here, so I was curious about that. And with that in mind, what does sponsorship give us?
Well, there's signage at the event, and we can put your City of Parksville in the ICE logo, but better than that, I think, is having a big sign there saying that the city of Parksville supports our event. And on top of that, we host a opening reception for the teams, and we invite all sponsors and dignitaries there to meet the teams and enjoy a drink on us. We also have an opening ceremony at the start of the event that we have a piper bring in the teams, and we would invite, the letter hasn't come out yet, we would invite City of Parksville to have a representative there, whether you sponsor or not. We would like to have someone there from here.
Follow up? Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. This is sounding better. Just put that out there to you. I'm thinking about, and certainly, you know, at Beach Fest, City of Parksville traditionally has been a sponsor, and, you know, the signage is you know, is appreciated, and a lot of people do see that. I'm also curious about, you know, with your budget, so you have other, because right now, looking at this budget, it looks like you're going to be in the hole with this. And I also understand that in recent years, you have received some money from the city. Is that correct?
Okay, we in 2020, we were to host the U18 under 18 championship, and the City of Parksville did not provide any money support. And it got canceled because of COVID anyways, but so they would have got the money back. But but in the past, we have had help with our BC men's, I believe, 2012.
Further follow-up?
Carry on.
Thank you. And perhaps this would be a question through to our acting CAO. Just wondering, thinking about what we asked of nonprofit organizations who are requesting a grant in aid. There's just certain information that we like to have. You've laid out a budget here, but I'm just wondering if there is typically additional information that is required for grants and aid. Would Mr. Russell or someone here
I
know
think you
that?
might have our financial statements on file from we have to provide that information to the City of Parksville now that you own us.
Aha.
Mhm.
Okay.
I can reply that the grant and aid, the only item on the grant and aid that I can recall, it actually asks for what type of percentage of population or benefit is to the, you know, the City of Parksville. You know, like basically is your organization the City of Parksville or organization, and or is your board members of City of Parksville and that type of thing. That's what we, one of the question on the grant and aids. And I recall in the, sorry, does that answer your question? Yes, and just I recall in grant and aid applications before, previously you had requested sometimes, and I think going back, I looked in the history and it was going back to 2012.
It's the one that you approved.
Yeah, so one that you had for the grant and aid. So all I'm suggesting is that sometimes the grant and aid is another way of getting a form of sponsorship anyways. If you, for exactly what you presented today is exactly what you put in the grant and aid. But of course, it's too late because your request is going to be for the next uptake for the grant and aids is going to be springtime, and your
Event
Bonspiel's
is in February.
right? So you probably missed that one, or not good to get that one. But the thing is that there's also what I'm suggesting in future. You have the option of applying like in the fall if you know you're thinking about hosting it. It would be wise if you could apply in the fall grant and aid application, and maybe try and get some money through that one, which would help you on your winter Bonspiel schedule. Just a suggestion anyways. It's you know, different councils I know react differently. So the thing is that just in future, maybe, you know, just consider it as an option anyways, just apply at that time.
Okay.
And anyways, Councillor Councillor Gore, but we go around and then we'll get back to Councillor Beal again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not a curler, but I like watching curling. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to showcase our town to the curlers from across BC. I really support your request with $1,000. And if Councillor Beal does not have any other questions, I would like to, you have a question? Okay. I just wanted to move that we provide them the grant.
Yes, okay, Councillor Gorey, if we could take all questions for council first, and then I will certainly welcome your request. Did you have your hand up, Councillor Mark? Microphone, please, Councillor Mark.
That was on, sorry. I've been to a national bonspiel in PEI for Special O, and that was the most exciting thing you can't imagine. So I can imagine this would be a great event. I would support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Councillor Beal.
Thank you very much. And yeah, sorry, I'm very interested. I really am. And I'm curious, and I absolutely actually do want to be supportive, but I'm curious to know, have you also met with the tourism, PQB tourism, and, because the fine folks there, can really help in so many ways. And
Yes,
your
actually-
partner is going to answer.
I actually read about the PQB tourism STEAM program, they call it, Sports Tourism Economic Assessment
Right.
Yeah.
Model. And I contacted them 4 months ago or so, and they had to contact their people in Nanaimo who would actually run it. And those people told them they had to be a member of Sport Tourism Canada. So PQB has become a member now, but now they're all on vacation. So I'm not sure where we stand at the moment, but it's in the works
Oh, okay.
to have a full economic assessment done. Yeah.
Yes, okay. Well, I'm pleased to hear that because that's a fantastic organization and they really can provide a lot of advice that's very good and also sometimes, some real hands-on service that can help bring down costs for yourselves and others. And I was actually, maybe Councillor Gore wants to do something else, but I was going to suggest a notice of motion, but I don't know if, if they got the final word. How soon would you need to know this? If, for instance, if you learned in January, we have a next meeting is in January. If you learned that we could be helpful as a sponsor, would that be good?
As I was told, we're putting the logos in the ice over the Christmas holidays. So if you wanted the Parksville City logo in the ice, it would have to be sooner. If not, it could be later.
And in saying that, the signage in the curling club is sometimes a little bit easier. Like, we don't have an upstairs lounge looking down at the ice. So signage in the main lobby and a sign, as a main sign out on a sandwich board or something is strong anyways.
So just to further your question, Councillor Beal, we could entertain a motion at this time with council unanimous approval. If at that time, if one of you wish to do a notice, or not a notice of motion, but actually a motion from the floor to regarding the delegation. Okay.
I'll move it, Mr. Mayor. And as long as the Parksville City logo is the biggest one, so I'm happy to support it.
Okay.
So I move that the Parksville Curling Club request for financial support in the amount of $1,000 to assist in the hosting of 2023 BC Provincial Masters Men's and Ladies Curling Championships be granted.
And I second that. Okay.
If I can just, to be taken from council contingency.
Oh,
Did you not have that? Yeah.
I-
Just the last part, it's just
Yep.
important. That's fine. And do I have a mover and a seconder?
I second.
Okay, and then, but first, I would like to request council approval. This is a motion from the floor. Are all those in attendance here tonight in favor of taking this off the floor, on the floor today? All in favor? Councillor Fraz? Are you, are you opposed to receiving these from the floor today?
Nope, I'm not opposed to it.
Thank you. Carry on. It's moved and seconded. So is there any further discussion regarding Councillor Did Councillor Fraz?
Yep.
To Councillor Gore's resolution here.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think I've spoken enough. Thank you.
Okay, and then the seconder gets. Okay, you're fine. Okay. Councillor Fraz, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor to council, just a couple of comments there. I can appreciate that they're coming to us asking for this $1,000 as the timing won't line up with their grant and aid. However, I much prefer that requests like this go through a grant and aid program. In our last term, we saw quite a few requests for support come through outside the program, and it starts to, it can get out of control kind of situation. That being said, though, when it comes from our council contingency, I think we take on an added responsibility. So I don't mind us taking that on. But I would much prefer this, like I say, to come through these kind of things to come through grant and aid. And perhaps we should revisit that grant and aid program to see maybe if the timing, if we could break it up or it needs to be amended for the amounts to it. But it should also be noted that the city of Parksville does substantially support the curling club. As it was mentioned, we own the building, which we also provide a permissive tax exemption to the curling club and lease it to them at a dollar amount. So, you know, and the work that we did to acquire that building to remove the RDN from being the middleman type of situation, it was definitely you know, the city provides a huge support to the curling club already. So I thought that should be just acknowledged. That I think even if the $1,000 wasn't supported, personally, I think having the city of Parksville branding or support acknowledged would still be appropriate. So I just want to make those kind of comments. And as I said, coming this $1,000 through our contingency, I think is the appropriate way to do it. So thank you.
Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mayor. And through the mayor to the council, Councillor Frass made several of the comments that I was also going to make. I will be voting in favor of this motion, however, because I want to support this event. However, I am somewhat concerned about setting a precedent about making votes on delegations, and I am unlikely to do that again. Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay, yes, my opinion is that I truly believe that New Brunswick is a huge economic driver for the city of Parksville, and obviously we support curling anyways because you know we have that building now in our park, and so we appreciate all the effort that you do in providing curling as a form of recreation in our community. So I too have no further questions at this point. If all clear, so I'll call all those in favor. That passes unanimous.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Now moving to correspondence, we have two pieces of correspondence on the agenda this evening. The Regional District of Nanaimo Regional Strategy for Net Zero Buildings and Localized Energy Generation. An invitation to participate in the development of a regional strategy for net zero buildings and localized energy generation. That the recommendation be that the correspondence from the Regional District of Nanaimo dated December 14th, 2022, regarding an invitation to participate in the development of a regional strategy for net zero buildings and localized energy generation be received. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Gore, seconded by Councillor Grenz. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you. Our second piece of correspondence this evening is regarding Parksville Beach Fest Society request for financial support. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Being that the correspondence from the Parksville Beach Festival Society dated December 12th, 2022, regarding a request for financial support be received. And point two, that consideration of the Parksville Beach Festival request for financial support in the amount of 7,500 be deferred to budget 2023 deliberations. That would be moved by Councillor Martin. And that's seconded by Councillor Fraz. Thanks for pointing that out. Any discussion? Mover Martin? Councillor
Has
Martin.
this been a tradition that we do this every year?
I would, since the delegation is not here, we have had requests for financial support in the past. Off the top of my head, I remember passing financial assistance where we supplied the sand for the sculptors and so forth. And that was it. Whether this is over and above that, I am not sure. But those questions would definitely be come up before we bring it forth to budget deliberation.
Thank you.
And Councillor Fraz.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make a comment to council through the mayor. I think this is appropriate for go to budget deliberations as they had come to us, year after year in the past there. And it is for the sands that the costs, of course, like everything, keep going up. And to be able to procure the sand is a difficult thing, as it needs to be a very specific sand for the sand sculpting. I actually thought that we had a line item included for the beach festival so that they didn't have to come year over year. But I could maybe just perhaps not recalling it, or maybe it was only 5,000 or so at the time. I see staff's camera coming on there, so just give me a thumbs up. So I think it was 5,000 we had. So it sounds like this is to increase it, the line item. So I just want to give that little bit of background there too, as this is different than just getting a request for something that I think should be passed through grants and aid. So at budget will be a great time to discuss it. And I hope that provides any clarity for council and public.
Thank you, Councillor Fraz. I also saw our CAO had her hand up. CAO Taylor, are you wishing to speak at this time, or okay? Thank you. You're back.
Mayor Worship, or sorry, not your worship, Mr. Mayor. Old habits. I was just confirming what Councillor Fraz was saying, that it is currently a line item for $5,000, and this request is to increase it to 7,500.
Thank you for that clarification, CAO Taylor. And I believe that the discussion to consider it in the budget deliberations when we have all those numbers in front of us is the right way to go. Is there any other comments regarding approving it to go to budget deliberation? Okay. Thank you very much. Discussion, all those in favor as moved? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Now for reports from staff, Ms. Legault, Director of Corporate Services. Could you please give us the background on the issue regarding group benefits for elected officials, to provide information on group benefits for elected officials?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Council. As noted in the UBCM Council and Board Remuneration Guide, the provision of benefits to elected officials is becoming an increasingly important topic of consideration in local governments. The guide recommends that local governments regularly.
Sorry, Ms. Legault. Councillor Fraz, are you able to hear that report?
Very, very faint. I'm sure other people that will be watching will have a hard time hearing it, but with careful, close attention, you can hear. But if she can speak up, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, Ms. Legault, I think that it's a remote mic that you have there. If you just get a little bit closer to the mic set itself, might be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. The guide recommends that local governments regularly review benefit coverage to ensure that programs reflect changing needs and reduce barriers to participation in local government. So with a new term of office, staff are bringing forward information on a group benefit plan for elected officials. The staff report outlines various options for extended health, dental, employee and family assistance programs, and optional insurance coverage. However, it's important to note that a minimum of 3 elected officials must agree to enroll, and all participants must agree to the same level of coverage and must participate in the program for the full council term. Options are provided in the report, along with a recommendation to provide enhanced benefits to elected officials as part of the council remuneration package. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the report from the Manager of Human Resources and Occupational Health and Safety dated December 6, 2022, entitled Group Benefits for Elected Officials be received? And part 2, that an enhanced extended health benefit and dental plan for elected officials be approved with costs included in the 2023-2027 financial plan. Part 3, the Council Remuneration and Expenses Bylaw 2011, number 1472, be amended to reflect the provision of extended health and dental benefits. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Martin moved. Councillor Grenz seconded. Discussion. You first.
Is there any age restriction with this program? Mr. Mayor.
And if I may, through Councillor or through Ms. Legault, could you answer that question? Is there an age restriction on this plan?
I don't believe there is any age restriction on the extended health benefits, but the details we would have to confirm as part of the application process.
Thank you.
Councillor Grenz, a seconder.
At this point, do you want to be discussing the actual merits of the plans or the proposal around the plans, or just accepting the or receiving the report?
Just receiving the report that it would have to, go through the merits and so forth of the plans and so forth will be decided by council as to what's most applicable to the council of the day, which is going to vary from year to year. So the thing is that discussion would have, it's just right now we're looking for approval to proceed with that. And then those individual plans will be based on the 7 council members' choices based on what works.
So I'm seconding to the recommendation that we receive the report from the Manager of Human Resources and Occupational Health and Safety.
Is it all 3? Okay, just one.
We have the CAO on.
Okay, yeah, I just see it popped up because I was going back to Councillor Martin's original. I was going to ask which she was moving. Yes, CAO Kaler.
Thank you, Mayor O'Brien. I thought we had a mover and a seconder for all 3, but perhaps we can confirm. I have Councillor Martin and Councillor Grenz as moving all 3, but if you wish to break them out, that is fine.
Right. I show 2 on my notes here that I had it for all 3. If I was mistaken, please point me out now. So Councillor Martin, did you move all 3? Thank you. Do I have a seconder for all 3 of those motions? Do I have a seconder for that? All 3. Thank you, Councillor Grenz. Is there further discussion? Councillor Beal.
Yes, to the mayor. I just want to thank you for your explanation earlier because I wasn't totally clear on this when I was having a look at it. And in all honesty, although I know we got it a little while ago, I really haven't taken a super thorough look at it.
Right.
I've been doing a lot of holiday baking in some, when I can. So, but from what you've explained, it would actually just get it sort of move it forward. And then in fact, there's still time to really look at it, whether or not it applies to individual councilors here. And if there are 3 who wish it and so on and so forth. So it just basically gets it on the books, as it were.
That's correct. We're moving the concept as it is, a such type of thing, and then the details will be worked out. As I say, we couldn't decide that now because we don't know the needs of the individual policy holders type of thing. So it would have to be decided after, but this is just moving along that direction that it is approved. Any other discussion? Councillor Gore.
Just a question there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So the staff did provide us with 4 options. So these will be considered at a later date, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, also, it says there's a 4 months limit. They want it done within 4 months from the time you're elected, as I recall reading. Is that time
Yes,
sensitive?
Councillor Martin, yes, we approve it right now anyways, but the
Oh,
thing is
okay.
that it's from date of election, UBCM give you a 4-month window to apply for it,
Right.
after date of election.
Right,
And so that clock is ticking.
exactly.
Since October was the date of the election type of thing, so it's 4
Mhm.
months after that. So that's why it's been brought forward now anyways, in order to apply in time to meet the UBCM deadline. Councillor Fraz, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor to staff. Wondering if you could explain how the cost of these premiums will be covered, both for the single or the family premiums.
And if I could, through Ms. Legault. Did you hear the question okay, Ms. Legault?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, through to council. The staff recommendation, it is implied that it would be covered as by the city. There were different options outlined in the staff report, and different municipalities, different local governments handle the situation differently. Some provide full payment for the benefit plans. Some may expect some co-payment, and in some cases, that's at the full cost of the elected official. This recommendation provides for the city to pay full coverage.
Councillor
May I
Fraz?
follow up? Yes, does that
Go ahead.
includes the family members under the family premium then? The city would be covering the family members as well, or would they be at the, yeah. Is that correct?
To clarify, that was the intent.
Okay, thank you.
The answer, yeah, that was the intent, Councillor Fraz, in case you didn't hear that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, it just wasn't clear in the report, so I just wanted to.
Yeah. Thank you.
understand that.
Thank you for that. Further questions? Councillor Wood.
Just a comment, Chair. We'll discuss this later, it sounds like, which is great. But one comment I would make is that it would lower the barrier of entry for people to run for council if there's a little bit more compensation in the way of benefits. A lot of jobs out there offer benefits, some don't. And so that's something to consider. At least this has been looked at by staff, and it'll be there on the books. Maybe the numbers change next council. But aside from considering ourselves, it's also something to consider to lower the barriers for the next council election. Thanks.
Good point. Good point. Thank you for that, Councillor Wood. Councillor Fraz.
Thank you. I guess this will be the staff through the mayor. Just following up on that then. Would this passing this, would this carry forward into a future term, or is this term dependent? Like it needs to be renewed each term and it's each council that would do it, or would this now set it up to where the next council after us would also access this?
And if I may, Ms. Legault, if you can answer that question, please.
Including this coverage in the remuneration bylaw, it makes it easier for it to be continuous, but of course, the council at any time would have the option of revisiting that.
That answer your question, Councillor Fraz? Thank you. Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to belabor this, but there is opportunity for further consideration of this in even if we pass it tonight, because I do have some concerns and questions around it. And so I'd like to have the opportunity to discuss those with the council.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Francis came out. That's unanimous. Thank you. Another report, we have Mr. Russell, Director of Community Planning and Building. Could you please give us a background on the issue regarding a follow-up report for the development variance permit to facilitate conversion of an accessory building to a carriage house at 429 Church Road to consider the issuance of a development variance permit?
Certainly, if I,
I,
can you hear me? Certainly, if I may, Chair and to council, since the date that this was last presented to council, required notice has now occurred. This is a development variance permit for consideration at 429 Church Road. If approved, it will authorize the conversion of an existing carriage house into an accessory, it will allow for the conversion of an accessory building into an accessory carriage house. The building is proposed to be 1 story, and the relaxations are from 3.0 meters to 1.8 meters from the northern interior property line. And notice has occurred, so council may at this evening consider issuance of the development variance permit. As of 4 p.m. this afternoon, no correspondence were received with respect to this application. If anyone wishes to speak to this, the chair may provide an opportunity.
I'll ask that at this time if there's anyone that wishes to speak regarding the variance at 429 Church Road. If you're here now, you are welcome to speak. Seeing none. Thank you. Therefore, do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated December 8th, 2022, entitled Follow-up Report, Consideration of a Development Variance Permit to facilitate the conversion of an accessory building into an accessory carriage house at 429 Church Road, file 3090 PV P056 be received. And point 2, that upon consideration of public comment received, council issue development variance permit number 22 PV P056 to the owners of 429 Church Road in order to facilitate the conversion of an accessory building into an accessory carriage house. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Grenz, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any discussion? Councillor Grenz first, if you none. Okay. Any other further discussion from anyone? Councillor Wood.
Through the chair, just to confirm, we have received no opposition correspondence at all for this, have we?
If I may, through the chair, through to Councillor Wood, that is correct.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Russell.
Certainly, if I may,
Director
Chair.
of Community Planning and Building, could you please give us a background on the issue regarding follow-up report to the development variance permit to facilitate a carriage house, 316 Dogwood Street, to consider issuance of a development variance permit? Mr. Russell.
If I may, through the chair to council, since this application was introduced to council, required notice has now occurred for this development variance permit at 316 Dogwood Street. For consideration is the issuance of development variance permit to relax the front lot line setback from 7.5 meters to 5.8 meters, as well as a relaxation to the northern interior lot line from 3 meters to 1.8 meters. As of 4 p.m. this afternoon, 5 pieces of correspondence were received from 8 individuals in opposition to this application. Those have been distributed to council in paper copies that are on your table, as well as through the council email. At this time, council may make a decision on whether or not to issue the development variance permit.
And at this time, I'd like to invite any individuals to speak, to come to the microphone and state their name and civic address for the record regarding the variance permit for 316 Dogwood Street. Absolutely, come up to the microphone, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I'm the owner of 316 Dogwood Street, and we would like to place a carriage house where an existing garage is already sitting on the
A little
property.
closer to the microphone, if you would, please.
Yeah, we would like to place a carriage house where an existing garage is located on the property right now. The front lot of the property is an actual angled property line. So the building itself will be 3.5 meters back from one corner of the interior lot line, and it's just the interior side of it that's going to be 5.8 meters back. The existing garage right now that sits there is actually 5.5 on that same corner, so it's actually a little bit closer. So this will be pushed a little bit further back. The reason for requesting to be so close to the side lot line is we have very long, narrow properties. The principal residences of those houses are out towards the water side, and where our garage sits right now is basically all out on its own to the street side of the property. So there's no principal residence right next door, probably never will be right at that location of the property. And just placing it where we're putting it just provides more functional use of the narrow lot for ourselves. And that's about all I have to say. Carriage house is within height limits and size limits for the property. It's just the lot line or the setbacks.
Right.
And I guess I would also like to request that those setbacks are separated out. So whether there's I'm not sure if that's possible, instead of like a no to both setbacks, whether it's an okay to one setback and not the other setback. I'm not sure if that is something that gets teased out of the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's still fresh in our head. I will direct the question to Director of Planning, Mr. Russell. Is that concept possible to consider one setback and not the other instead of both?
Certainly, if I may, Mayor, council can pass a motion that issues only part of the development variance permit rather than both variances, but it would need to be through a resolution.
Thank you. Is there any other individuals? Absolutely, come up to speak to 316 Dogwood Street. If you state your name and civic address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jennifer Tobin. I live at 321 Dogwood Street, across and one over from the property in question. My concern with the variance request is from a safety and congestion standpoint. So where they're currently proposing to put a much taller, much larger building than what's currently on that spot, we'll have additional accommodations. Currently, when the family has gatherings at the house, they often have 4 or 5 more cars, and that side of the road is quite narrow, and there's no parking on that side of the road. With additional accommodations, we're going to need additional parking to deal with the additional people that will be there. So I don't see how we're going to have additional parking available if we don't abide by the existing setback requirements. My concern is just there's a lot of cars and there's a lot of young kids in our neighborhood, mine in particular, who like to ride her bike, and I just don't want more cars parked on the street all the time. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there any discussion? Yes, come on up to the microphone. Absolutely.
Councilors, I'm at 317 Dogwood and I'm Chantel. So I'm directly across the street. In comments to teasing out the different variances, I know the variance in terms of moving it closer to the street, the diagonal, would definitely affect the privacy of my family. It makes a pretty big difference. I also know she wrote a letter. She's just a bit more elderly, so she didn't want to come in today with the snow and everything, but the direct neighbor beside them also would be affected by the other variance. So I'm fairly certain that teasing out the differentials between the two variances wouldn't really make much of a difference in terms of the neighborhood and the people who actually live there. No, nothing against somebody who is out of towner, but for those of us who actually live in the neighborhood, these variances are very critical. And I'm not sure that it may take out a tree possibly or so, but they have a very large lot. So I don't think the privacy of everyone who's actually living in the neighborhood and even just the fabric of the neighborhood. You know, this is a very large structure that's going in. It's nothing like the garage that's there already. It really does affect the look of the street and the feel and the safety and just so many privacy elements of it. I know for me, it's not a super deep functional road. So having a structure built a lot closer to the road and, you know, being so tall, it really invades on my privacy. And I think my family deserves that. You know, we got this house looking at the neighborhood and the feel of it, and there's no expectation that something would be sort of pushed outside of the typical bounds. So we would really appreciate it. And I know there's quite a few people in the neighborhood would just appreciate that at the very least that be kept to. And, you know, further comments even to the neighbors that they would maybe consider not going to the absolute height and absolute size that they can, because it just really affects the neighborhood feel for the people that actually live there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And you had referred, it's okay, you referred to correspondence. Did Mr. Russell, did you receive that late correspondence that received today from the individual that hand wrote the note?
If I may, through the chair, that is in your package that is beside you there.
Right, and all council members, you received that correspondence, so you understand. I just want to clarify that that was received. Okay, thank you. Another, yes, come on up, sir, regarding 316 Dogwood Street.
Hello, my name is Ian Conway. I'm the owner of 311 Dogwood Street, which is directly across the street from the proposed building.
Yes, sir.
I can understand why the new owners there would want to do this, because it would be a benefit to them to have a larger front property. But the problem is that for the rest of us who have to deal with the result of that, we lose something. I mean, we're going to lose something no matter what, because the building will block the view no matter what, even if you keep the original standards. But increasing the proximity to the street and the side diminishes even more. So all I'm saying is that it doesn't seem right to me that they are trying to gain something when we are trying to lose just a little bit less. It really does make a big difference because for our street, for our house, that corner is the only view we have on the ocean. And with the proposed amendments to the setbacks, we will lose all our view. If we can keep the setbacks as they are, the 7.5 meter from the front and 3 meter from the side, that brings it a little bit further down the hill and a little bit further to the south, and we can maintain some of our view. Plus, because of the slope of the lot, it will be going further back, so we'll be going further down as well. So we'd really appreciate it if you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else who would like to speak regarding 316 Dogwood Street? Thank you for your comments. Thank you for taking the time to visit us here. So, do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated, sorry, I'm going to back this up a bit. Would council like to have these two recommendations separated? Thank you. I should have been clear on that. So, as to the mover and the seconder for the recommendation that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated December 8th, 2022, entitled Follow-up Report, consideration of a development variance permit to authorize the siting of an accessory carriage house at 316 Dogwood Street, file 3090, PVP 057, be received. I have a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Gore, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And I'll look for a mover or seconder for point 2, that upon consideration of public comment received, council issued development variance permit number 22 PVP 057 to the owners of 316 Dogwood Street in order to facilitate the siting of an accessory carriage house. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Calling next. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation?
Mr. Mayor, I will
Yes.
move and hopefully we can second it for discussion, please.
Counselor Gore, moved by Counselor Gore, seconded by Counselor Beal. Counselor Gore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate you folks coming and talking about your concerns and the owners of 316 Dogwood. I did take the opportunity to go in the neighborhood, talk to the people affected, and look at the property myself. I understand the need for housing, the need for more rental spaces, and owners proposing converting garages into carriage homes. This is the future. This is what we are looking at. However, I see a lot of concerned neighbors. This property has about 5 to 6 houses in front and on the side. And I think we've received complaints from, if not all of them, most of them. So for that reason, I'm not supportive of granting this variance. Actually, like both the setbacks, I'm against. I think it goes against the neighborhood fabric that we need. It's a dead-end street. It's a very quiet, friendly street, lots of kids. And I really hope we can preserve that. Thank you.
Counselor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, I also did go by the area. I do know the street, but I went by and had a look, and I can really appreciate the concern about the question as to whether or not there would be adequate parking in front of this structure, because it does seem to be quite close to the street. So that is a first concern. I hadn't realized that the concern about the side setback was as big a concern, looking at the bird's eye view, which sometimes is inadequate. But I do have a question through to Mr. Russell, if that could work. And I would like to know if there's enough width of this property to, in fact, respect the setbacks, the standard setbacks that we would have.
And through to Mr. Russell.
If I may, Your Worship, your chair, through to Councillor Beal. I believe on page 48 of the agenda, there's a diagram that shows the relationship of the building to the property lines. And it appears to me that there is sufficient room.
Thank you.
Does that-
And
okay.
yeah, I share the same concerns as Councillor Gore.
Counselor Grenz.
I do have some questions, but I think Counselor Frost had his hand up earlier, so maybe I'll let him go first.
Counselor Fraz.
Yeah, thank you. I guess my comments will be to council through the mayor. They were along the lines the same as Councillor Beal. I was going to ask if there's any technical reasons why this carriage home couldn't be built within the current standards that the setback requirements there, and it doesn't seem, there's nothing that pops out to me as to why it couldn't be done. Can appreciate though the owners, this is their desire, they're making their request, this is the appropriate way to make the request. So I think that's great that they came before us. Nothing wrong with that. But I think to me, to provide a variance, there has to be some kind of compelling reason. I don't see that in this case, aside from just the desire to have it. So I won't be supporting it.
Counselor Grenz.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have some questions through to the Director of Planning. It looks to me like the majority of the properties on this street have half the property size of the property in question here, including the ones on the same street or same side of the street that have homes that look to be approximately where this proposed carriage home would go. Are all the other houses on the street complying with the setback requirements? And related to that, we know that this garage currently does not comply. How does that come about?
If I may, Chair, through to Councillor Grenz. So on the first page of the agenda for the report, which is on page 43, we can see the footprints of the principal buildings of the property. It doesn't show this particular accessory building, but it does show the alignment of the principal buildings. We can see one property on Bay Ave, the corner of Bay Avenue and Dogwood at 302. That is on the water side that is close, fairly close to Dogwood. With respect to the building permit history of the existing accessory building, I do not know the specifics of when it was built to know why its locations there. Setbacks have changed over time within the city. And depending on the age of the structure, it at one point in time was not within the boundary of the city. So it's possible that it would have setbacks that are what we would call legal non-conforming, where they met the requirements at one point in time, but due to changes in bylaws, no longer meet those requirements.
Does that answer your question or a follow-up?
That answers that
Councillor.
question. I may have another one if
Carry
you-
on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we know what the current number of parking spaces are at the building presently relative to the number of parking spaces that would be there following the construction of this carriage house? And do you also know whether the carriage house will be built regardless of the setback requirement? Is the setback requirement or variance being sought in order to avoid cutting down some trees on the property?
If I may, Chair, through to Councillor Grens. The parking question's a little difficult to answer. So in the air photo, we can see that there's a double car garage and we can see that there's 2 parking spaces minimally on the property. They have to provide 1.5 parking stalls per dwelling unit rounded up to the next whole number to meet the bylaw requirements. The bylaw requirements are only that it be a hard, durable surface. So that could be concrete or that could be gravel. So it's because of that, certainly there certainly appears to be room on the property to accommodate sufficient parking for the development, but that there's not a permitting process for that. And that would come at a later date at the time that they're getting their building permit, that they would need to show on their building plan that there's a location for it. So I can't answer the question on the specific number of spaces, but they are under the bylaw required to have basically 3 spaces when you round it all up. As to your other question, which I just had would you mind repeating the question?
Sorry to pile them on the Director of Planning there. Through the Mayor to the Director of Planning, the second question was whether the carriage home will be built regardless, just is if this variance is being sought in order to avoid cutting down trees on the property.
If I may worship through to Councillor Grens, I believe that to be the case. The building, I believe a carriage house could be repositioned elsewhere on the property, a 2-story carriage house, and achieve the setback requirements. It would, however, disturb more of the vegetation on the property, and it would not be utilizing the area under the footprint of the existing accessory building.
Thank you. Any further, Councillor Martin?
Yes.
Carry on.
Through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Russell. Can you tell me, is it possible to have the roof flat or lowered so views are not affected so much if it's moved forward?
If I may, through the chair to Councillor Martin, certainly a person can propose a roof that is a lower height. That being said, they're constrained by the requirements of the zoning bylaw that's in place. And so they have permission already to build to a certain maximum height. Council can within, again, it would be, council certainly can within the, someone could apply for a build, let me rephrase my answer. Someone could apply for a building seeking a setback relaxation that is of a different height, but that's not what's proposed as part of this particular development variance permit application. The permit is for a specific building. There's specific plans that this application is seeking to get a variance from. And so that would be a different application essentially.
I've been by the property also, Mr. Russell, and is it quite sloped? So if it goes further down the property, you might have to move a tree off, but then there will be lower, the building would be lower? Is that true? Like, is there much of a slope, really? It's hard for me to know that.
If I may, through the chair, through to Councilor Martin, I believe there's a little bit of a slope, but it's certainly not a mountain slope or anything like
No,
that.
okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment. While we do need housing, definitely, it seems like we've heard from the residents of the area, and I've been down the street as well. And I would feel more comfortable if the accessory building went ahead without the variance on the setbacks myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? And I too have to echo that. We're big fans of carriage houses, as we know, as an affordable option for the city. And we have a great deal of requests for more carriage houses, which we applaud. But it is, I have to suggest that I've heard what the neighbors have said. And in this particular part for the community that they live in. And I think that has to be respected in this particular case to not allow the variances at this time. So I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? The recommendation for the variances at 316 Dogwood Street is not approved. Thank you. Mr. Russell, Director of Community Planning and Building, could you please give us a background on the issue regarding consideration of development permit for Parksville Community Park Gathering Place to consider issuance of a development permit?
Certainly, if I may, through the chair to council, for council consideration is the issuance of development permit to facilitate the gathering space or gathering plaza. This particular portion of the site is within 2 development permit areas. It's in the Coastal Protection Development Permit Area number 11, as well as the Floodplain Development Permit Area number 12. In this particular case, the works will be occurring more than 40 meters away from the present natural boundary of the ocean. The recommendations are per the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that point 1, that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated December 14th, 2022, entitled Consideration of a Development Permit at 193 Island Highway East to facilitate a public gathering place, file 360 PDP 134 be received? And point 2, the council issued development permit number 22 PDP 134 to the owner of 193 Island Highway East to facilitate a public gathering place. Have a mover and a seconder first. That would be Councillor Martin moved, seconded by Councillor Wood. Discussion, please. Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through Mayor to our Director of Planning. Mr. Russell, do we have any information at this time about the kind of surfacing that will be used in this project?
If I may, through the chair to Councillor Gar, my understanding is pervious pavers are being used, that they're a special interlocking pervious paver, and that they go on a particular kind of base that's designed so that they stay flush and don't create tripping hazards. And they're pervious so that water can go through them and help get into the soil.
One more, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Follow up, go ahead.
Thank you. What's the timeline? Do you know when are we when this project is likely to be finished? Will it be ready for the summer?
If I may, through the chair to Councillor Guar, that aspect of it, I'm not, the planning department is not processing. That's being processed by the city's operation department. It is my understanding that it's just gone out to tender. And I believe that they hope to have it completed by this summer, but the specifics on that would be answered when the tendering closes, and they'll be reporting back to council at that time with the selection of council's tender, and the timelines would be established at that point.
Any further questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Approved, opposed? That carries unanimous. We have another report from Mrs. Holmes, Director of Finance. Could you please give us a background on the issue regarding the 2022 to 2026 amended financial plan to provide council with amended 2022 to 2026 financial plan bylaw?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a follow-up to the December 5th meeting when we went through all the details of the proposed amendments to the financial plan, and council gave direction to incorporate those amendments into an amended financial plan bylaw. So in your agenda package tonight is the report in which we're recommending that you move those amendments to the statutory process, which essentially means when you get to your bylaws section this evening that you would give approval to those changes being incorporated, and those are reflected now in the bylaw that's in your agenda package. The total changes, as you recall, most of them were moving from 1 year into the next year without any net impact on surplus, but there is an accumulated impact of about $300,000 reducing surplus over the 5 years of the financial plan. And that's detailed at the last meeting as well as in the report this evening. As we move forward into the 2023 to 2027 financial planning process, these amendments will be already formed as part of those 2023 years and being started early in the year. And that was the reason for the requests to amend in the first place. So happy to take any questions if you have, but it's before you in the agenda package.
Let's get this on the floor. So do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that the report from the Director of Finance dated December 12, 2022, entitled 2022 to 2026 amended financial plan be received, and that the 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw 2022-2026 number 1577.1 be advanced to the statutory process? Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? That'd be Councillor Grenz and Councillor Beal. Seconded. Now, discussion and any questions for Mrs. Holmes or discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Mrs.
Good evening.
Holmes. Mrs. Weeks, Manager of Administrative Services, could you please give us a background on the issue regarding 2023 Chamber of Commerce fee for service to renew the Chamber of Commerce fee for service agreement?
So this report requests council consideration of a fee-for-service agreement renewal with the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce. So for the operation of the Visitor Information Center, which the chamber has successfully operated since 1999. The only change to the agreement for 2023 is the inflationary fee increase. There are no other changes to the terms and conditions and the recommendations per the council agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that point 1, that the report from the Manager of Administrative Services dated November 29th, 2022, entitled 2023 Chamber of Commerce fee for service be received? And point 2, that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to sign the 2023 fee for service agreement with the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce for the annual amount of $54,879. I have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Wood moved, Councillor Gore seconded. Any discussion or questions for Ms. Weeks? Councillor Grenz.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the mayor to, oh, I forget your title. Manager of Administration, thank you. So the only change here is an increase due to the BC Consumer Price Index. This may be a question for staff generally, actually, are we to expect to have a 7.6% increase to just about every line item in the budget, or how common are we going to see this? Because this can be quite concerning for an increase in property taxes.
Through the chair, that I'm not sure of, actually. I know it's for this agreement in particular because it's written in the agreement, but for other ones that I'm not sure.
Yes, if I can further, the agreement with the Chamber of Commerce is actually conditional that they would actually receive the cost of living increase. That's what the ask would be. And they are already on as a line item in the budget type of thing. So it's an expected one. Whether it's going to apply to everyone that comes through, that would be conditional on whether that's actually accepted into their original line item in the budget when they propose. Any ones that are already in there, if they have that clause, that they would expect it, then we're going to see it. But if they have an asset in the past type of thing to be included as part of future considerations, I think it would just be on a one-off basis. Possibly could end up that way. I agree. I understand totally what you're saying. But the thing is that, is it going to be automatic? No, it's not automatic. But the thing is that, yeah, get ready. It's going to cost a lot more to run everything now. So that's, we understand that fully. Good point. Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just more of a comment. As I'm learning more and more about my role in different departments and organizations like the Chamber, I just want to thank the Chamber through this platform for all the services that they provide for our community, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments regarding the report? And Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to follow up. So this, while the fee for service piece is concerning somewhat of the inflationary effects of that as well, but I do want to recognize the very important service that the BC Chamber does for the city of Parksville in providing the Visitor Information Center, which is very important to our community, and definitely want to acknowledge their service there.
As noted, thank you. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. There's a lag in our video here, but yes, that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Weeks. Ms. Weeks, don't go away. Mrs. Weeks, Manager of Administrative Services, could you please give us the background on the issue regarding the community park mobile food vending, the rental of the mobile food vending pads in the Parksville Community Park?
Thank you. The most recent agreement to provide concession services in the community park expired in August with no further option to renew. Since 2015, the city has provided food concession services through mobile food vendors managed through a seasonal license of occupation with a one-year option to renew. Staff are proposing an agreement for a 3-year term with an option to renew for an additional 2 years at the city's sole discretion. The seasonal 3-year term will promote a stable continuity of food services and reduce the administrative cost of managing the license on an annual basis. The seasonal 3-year term may also be more attractive for interested vendors as it provides a measure of security, allowing food providers to plan their operating schedules in advance, and the recommendations per the council agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendations? Any desire to pull them out separately? Seeing none, the recommendation point 1, that the report for the Manager of Administrative Services dated November 29th, 2022, entitled Community Park Mobile Food Vending be received. Point 2, that a request for proposals be issued for the occupation of the 2 existing mobile food vending pads in the Parksville Community Park from May 1 to September 30th for a 3-year term effective 2023 to 2025, with an option to renew for a further 2 years from 2026 to 2027 at the sole discretion of the city. A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Grenz, seconded by Councillor Beal. Discussion or questions for Mrs. Weeks? Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and a question through to Ms. Weeks. Was was this proposal, was there input from the chamber and or food truck providers with, was there input in terms of coming up with the 3-year plan, et cetera? I'm just curious to know if it was in consultation with the chamber and others.
Through the chair, I did mention it to the chamber, but there was nothing official.
Further questions? All, is that a question, or are you voting early, or are you just, you just want to be first? Councillor
so-
Beal, follow up.
So just to clarify, then we don't actually know if the chamber or if food truck providers actually will support this particular proposal. Is that what I understand? Like we don't know if they actually want this. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, with the food trucks, that's correct. In speaking with the chamber, they're very supportive. Yeah.
This is just an RFP at this point. If they're not supportive, then they won't apply. I would assume. Thank you. Councillor Fraz, a question. Yes.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, just something to consider. In the past, we had it as a 1-year term, 1-year renewal. Caution a little bit against having contracts and terms that run beyond this term of council and then ties the hand of the future council for any length of years. This one starting in 2023 to 2025 with a further 2 years would run it well into the next term. Relationships amongst councils can change. And of course, I just think anything that we do should be limited to our terms, so that if you know, different relationships come aboard, they have the opportunity to go with what their preferences at the time. I think doing a shorter term with options to renew at the discretion of the city would be more appropriate, whether it would be a 2-year with a 2-year renewal, or a 3-year with 1-year renewal, or some kind of combination of that would limit it to our term.
Thank you for that. Any further questions or comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Fraz opposes. Thank you. The report from our CAO, Mrs. Kaler, Chief Administration Officer. Could you please give us a background on the issue regarding Council Code of Conduct, to present options to Council for consideration of a Council Code of Conduct?
Thank you, Mayor O'Brien. So Council currently does have a code of conduct, but it was adopted by policy in 2009. And the province has recently adopted new legislation that requires this council within 6 months of being elected to do a number of things. So you can either look at the current code of conduct in the context of the new legislative requirements, and those are outlined in the report. There are principles for consideration. You could adopt the current principles and say that they are consistent with the current code, or you could ask to develop a new code, again, with those principles in mind. And the other option would be for council to decide that it does not require a code of conduct. The report outlines if council goes with the third option, to not have a code of conduct for this term, you must reconsider that in the January of the next election year, which would be 2026. Recommendations are included in the agenda. And should council consider developing a new code, it's strongly recommended that specific legal advice be sought in developing the code, so that council can get expert advice on different elements of the code that would make it enforceable or provide remedy should there be any issue arising. Recommendations are per the staff report.
Thank you, Mrs. Kaler. I would like to ask for a mover or seconder for the recommendation point 1 only at this time. Recommendation that the report for the Chief Administration Officer dated November 30th, 2022, entitled Council Code of Conduct, be received. Mover and seconded by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Grenz. Any comments or discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Part 2 of this report anyways includes wording for possible motions from our CAO's report. Do all council members have that in front of you? Councillor Fraz, you've been minimalized on my screen. I can't, oh, there you are. You're back again. Councillor Fraz, do you have the possible wording for motions, option 1, 2, and 3 in your package?
I have what's in the agenda here. I see 4 options provided, if that's what you're speaking about.
Yes, I just want to make sure that everyone has it in their package. Thank you. So at this time, we could enter a resolution at this time from the floor based on either option 1, 2, or 3. Do I see any proposal to do so? Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we select option 1, which is that we decide to retain the existing code of conduct and confirm it believes the wording here is off. Confirm that it conforms with the existing code. My rephrasing of the wording is incorrect. Apologies. That we retain the existing code of conduct and confirm that we believe that it complies with BC Regulation 136/2022.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Is there a seconder for that option? That is Councillor Gore will second that. Councillor Grant, you speak to it first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So codes of conduct are relatively new in BC municipal politics, and they are very well intentioned, I believe, in order to regulate the behavior of elected officials. That said, because it is new, I would suggest that perhaps we should not be the guinea pigs for this. One main reason is because they are not without controversy and without problems that arise from the application of codes of conduct. I'm going to reference a CBC News article from February of this year, the title of which is "Codes of Conduct in Local Government Are Being Used to Quash Dissent," critics say. The summary of the article is that there have been examples of councils where there's a minority that is basically silenced by the majority through the use of a code of conduct. And because it's generally a self-policing mechanism within the council, that it creates dynamics that are problematic within the council. And anytime there's any kind of mechanism that allows for council members to basically be the judge and jury of other council members, that becomes problematic, as has been cited in this example. We do have UBCM making a recommendation to the province of British Columbia to establish an independent office of integrity for local governments that would provide this kind of oversight. And I would suggest that we leave it to the provincial government to do their job in this particular area. And instituting that, we are fortunate to have the legacy of a code of conduct that predates a lot of the discussion around this here in the city of Parksville. And I think generally speaking, the city has been well served by that code of conduct and the conduct of the elected officials. And I would also note that in our democracy, there is a role for the demos to ensure that they elect people who demonstrate integrity and community service and the best interests of the community to office, and they can remove people from office the next election if they see that that is not what is being done. So that would be my comments on the matter.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Gore, you're next. I see our CAO is weighing in perhaps. Mrs. Kaler, do you have any comments just to clarification of the intent?
No, not at this time, Mayor O'Brien.
Okay, thank you. I just saw you appear. I feared that I missed your hand. Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the mayor to the council. It's very well put by Councillor Grenz. He's probably the lawyer in him that's speaking right now. I do understand the importance of code of conduct. Like any other job, we have a code of conduct, how we should be conducting ourselves in private and public, being the public servants. I really have seen personally through experiences and the examples in the news, how it can be abused to silence the minority, and that's the beauty of democracy, to have everybody have a voice. So I echo what Councillor Grants had to say. And I personally think it's, because this itself, if you revise, we're looking at about $10,000 of taxpayer money in revising this code, and not to take into account the extra staff time, more money when it comes to any complaints being investigated. A city of this size, I think we should be investing, using public money very judiciously. So I do support the option presented by Councillor Grants. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Wood.
Through the chair, just a comment to council. I find both Councillor Grants and Councillor Gore's arguments quite compelling. You know, when you take into consideration the $10,000 that it would cost to look at this code of conduct, and to Councillor Grant's point, it can be weaponized. And I don't think that's necessarily beneficial to a good working council. I can think of other ways that we could spend the $10,000, such as perhaps a warming shelter or something like that. So I don't think I can, I think I can support Councillor Grant's motion for option 1. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important we get a lot full discussion on this of all council. Councillor Martin.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I really agree with this. I was thinking that we needed to do the research. And then I think it's better that it's done by the province. And like you suggested, Councillor, because that's $10,000 is a lot of money. And it already has been researched once. So I agree with both councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I too would like to support the comments made by Councillor Grens and others here. And I'd just like to add that one thing I really appreciate about our existing code of conduct is that it is very positive in spirit, and it does not take a, let's say, a punitive or a negative approach to it at all. And so I think that concentrating on the good that we can be both in private and in public life, and with each other's, and with the citizenry is really the way to go. So I appreciate that. And over time, if other things are needed, I think that whether it be through the UBCM and eventually the province, that they can set something up, well, that sounds good. So I support this motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Frass.
Thank you. To the mayor, to council, my thoughts on this are supportive of Councillor Grenz's motion there. Particularly, I think we do meet the requirements that are outlined by way of the fact that we also have all sworn an oath of office, which outlines these same points that are required out of us here. So not only do we have a code of conduct of the city, we've each individually sworn an oath to uphold this.
Thank you. And I'll weigh in last as usual. The thing is that I believe that the code of conduct that we have in play, my feeling, is already effective. We were elected knowing what the code of conduct was. We agreed to abide that with our oath. And I feel that it's already proven that this council has definitely treated each other with respect and care of each other's feelings, and allowing full discussion. So maybe another council might not feel the same, but I am in total support of this as well. I have seen it in other councils where they have code of conduct where it was used as bullying against another, say, a minority. And I wasn't appreciative of that, whereby then they had to get legal counsel to advise whether it was actually bullying and so forth. And then it just went on and on. So the $10,000 is just the first of it. I see a great call for more decisions made from our legal friends. So I too will be supporting Councillor Grenz's motion here. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question on option 2. or option one, that upon review of policy number 2.226, Council Code of Conduct 2009, and consideration of the principles for codes of conduct regulation, BC Registry 1362022 and sections 113.1 and 113.2 of the Community Charter, Council confirms its opinion that the existing code of conduct complies with the prescribed legislative requirements. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Good discussion, Council. Thank you. We have a policy review by Mrs. Legault, Director of Corporate Services. Could you please give us the background on the issues regarding the Council Contingency Fund Policy number 2.9 amendment to seek council approval for an amendment to Council Contingency Fund Policy number 2.9. Mrs. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is to proposes an amendment to Council Contingency Fund Policy 2.9, which currently authorizes the reimbursement of up to $1,000 per council member per term for the purchase of electronic devices required for council business. As you know, and new this term, each councillor has been provided with a city-issued laptop, tablet, and at the time that the expenditure was approved by the previous council, the related staff report referenced bringing forward a housekeeping amendment to the policy. And so this amendment is before you tonight with a recommendation to approve the revised policy.
Thank you, Mrs. Legault. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Point one, that the report from the Director of Corporate Services dated December 6, 2022, entitled Council Contingency Fund Policy number 2.9 amendment be received, and point two being that Council Contingency Fund Policy number 2.9 be approved as amended by deleting section 2 in its entirety. I have a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Gore, seconded by Councillor Martin. Discussion, please. Councillor Fraz.
Thank you. I guess this is to council through the mayor. Just wanted to provide some comments on this after being through the last term, both of the RDN and the City of Parksville. Now here I can understand how this is a housekeeping item to remove this, since that we have computers now to do our work from. However, one thing I think is important to be brought up to understand though is after COVID, one of the things we learned when a lot of meetings went to Zoom is the way I'm attending this meeting right now as well. And you can see weather days, if we're held back from being able to drive in, or if people are away, or if pandemic type situations come about, it's not possible to do our meetings just with just your computer. Both that we do our agendas electronically, and to be able to Zoom in, you can't have them up at the same time. When I was at the RDN there, for every meeting that they do on Zoom, I'm not sure if there's still people attending over Zoom or not. You need to have two devices, one strictly for the agenda and one for the Zoom to operate. Also for us, the new email system we have to be able to have your phone to be able to access your email by the authenticator apps, as well as to have your device to pull up your email. I think it's appropriate to actually maintain the policy the way it is. I think it's more preparation for the way we're going with electronic devices. However, I can understand why this is considered a housekeeping at this moment. It seems like, oh, one device is enough, but in this day and age, I don't know anybody who's getting by really on one device. So I think it's appropriate to leave it there. I wasn't in favor of it in the first place when we initially brought it in, but as things change, the same way we've moved to electronic agendas, I think we need to kind of stay ahead of it rather than always trying to play catch up. So that's my thoughts.
Any other comments? I'll call the question. Are all those approved? All those in favor, sorry. All those in favor of the recommendations as stated? Opposed? That is opposed by Councillor Martin and Councillor Frass. Thank you. That carries. Bylaws, setting of the public hearing date. Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 27.143, a public hearing for the above noted map and text amendment to comprehensive development CD 35 at 285 Pioneer Crescent was set for December 19th, 2022. However, due to legislative note of timelines not being met, that public hearing must be rescheduled. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the zoning and development amendment bylaw now 2022 number 2000.143 be advanced to a public hearing to be held on Monday, January 16th, 2023 in the forum at the Parksville Civic and Technology Center, located at 100 Jensen Avenue East, Parksville, BC, starting at 10 a.m. I have a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Martin. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Under bylaws again, we have 3 readings for the 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw 2022-2026, number 1577.1, to amend the 2022 to 2026 final financial plan. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw 2022 to 2026, number 1577.1, be read 3 times? Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Another bylaw, 3 readings, road closure bylaw 2022, number 1582, to close part of the lane abutting the southern boundary of the property at 380 Hearst Avenue West, removing the dedication and dispose and convey the land. And do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the road closure bylaw number 2022, number 1582 be read 3 times? Do I have a mover and seconder for that recommendation? Seeing none, that recommendation fails. Bylaws for final adoption. Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 2000.134, map and text amendment to comprehensive development CD 32 at 456 Island Highway West. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that the Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 2000.134, be reconsidered and finally adopted, signed by the mayor and corporate officer, and the corporate seal affixed thereto? Moved and seconded, please, by Councillor Beal, seconded by,
I'll second it for discussion.
and will Councillor Gore will second. Is there discussion? Councillor Beal, you moved, you speak first if you like, or are you good? Thank you. Councillor Gore, carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess this is a question for Mr. Russell, our Director of Planning. So the proposal here is to build 28 units. Do we know what type they're proposing? I understand it's a 4-story building. They talk about tourists, seniors housing, but it's nothing concrete. Do we have any background on that, please?
If I may, Chair, through to Councillor Gore. At this time, I do not believe a specific project has been defined.
Good. Follow up, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are you aware of any concerns from the neighboring property, which is a single-family home at the moment?
If I may, your Chair, through to Councillor Gore, I don't recall the specifics comments of the public hearing. However, my recollection is that they were fairly limited in scope.
Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And a question then through to our Director of Planning. Little background, I went back to the council meeting of April 20th, I believe it was, earlier this year, and to look at what was proposed at that time. So has something changed? Has that completely come off the table and it is no longer that proposal that's going forward?
If I may, through the chair to Councillor Beal, I'm aware of no specific changes to the proposal. The proposal illustrated a 28-unit apartment building with sufficient parking, but the specific, ultimately what's going to get built will be a future application.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you. As for next, we have the liaison reports. We would now like to move into liaison reports, and in the interest of efficiency, I would ask council members, please keep their updates concise as possible. I know this is a great opportunity and I appreciate brevity. Councillor Wood, would you like to provide an update on the RDN activities?
Thank you, Chair. I'll make this quick. This is a verbal report for the Regional District of Nanaimo Board. An update from the city's appointed RDN board directors on current RDN activities, projects, and news, including the approval of the following grant funding. Oceanside Recreation Services Community Grant. These are below that. Parksville Indoor Slow Pitch League Seniors and Special Olympics Tournament Equipment Advertising and Awards, $2,000. Parksville Community Center Society Game Nights for Adults and Youth Card Tables, $1,800. Oceanside Floor Curling Club Keeping Seniors Active. Insurance, rental, and supplies, $2,000. The MAC School for Creative Arts, the OCAC, MAC School for Creative Arts, Materials, Marketing, and Rental, $2,500. Oceanside Services Youth Grant, MAC School for Creative Arts again, Youth Art Lab, Art Supplies, Software, $2,500. And then finally, Oceanside Community Safety Grant, Mid-Island Air Search and Rescue Society, $1,000. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Wood. Councillor Beal, sorry, Councillor Beal and Gore, would you like to provide an update on our meeting with the Ballina Secondary School students?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the three of us attended a meeting with a number of youth from Ballina Secondary School, along with a teacher, and also James Arden, who is here working in the Parks Department for the city. And this is a group of youth who are wanting to volunteer to do tree planting and general cleanup. I really appreciated Mr. Arden's comment that cleaning up garbage can in fact can include cleaning up invasive plants. And that's certainly something I think all of us could think about in our own backyards. They were very encouraging of the students and thinking about areas in the city, in parks, et cetera, where trees can be planted. So that will be moving ahead, I'm sure. Also beyond that, yeah, so these students came from a variety of different clubs and interests, but all wanting to impact our city in a very positive manner.
Councillor Gore, anything to add?
Yeah, just one comment here, Mr. Mayor, thank you. It was very interesting to see these high schoolers so caring about the environment, about their city. They want to plant trees. They want to see this city covered in trees. There's tree canopies. So I really am appreciative of their efforts and their energy. I think it's a lot to learn from them. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And since I was there as well, I'd just like to also comment the fact on how appreciative I am to Jamie's attendance at the meeting from City of Parksville and his total commitment to assist these students in getting those trees in the ground. As he says, we want to get them in the ground soon. They're ready to go, and the City of Parksville is fully supportive of this. And we look forward to having all of counselors out there with a shovel in their hand at a date not too far in the future. And we'll see who really has the green thumbs in the crowd here. No, it was a great meeting, and moving forward, they're going to provide a better tree canopy for the city parks for future generations, which is absolutely amazing coming from the student body. Councillor Beal, would you like to provide your liaison reports, please?
Thank you. Yes, one of the groups that I attend is the Early Learning and Childcare Oceanside group, and that brings together a number of people who are working with childcare in the area and the school district as well. And I guess just a couple of takeaways. One is that people hear about the $10 a day daycare, or childcare, but at this particular point in time, there is no $10 a day in the Oceanside area. That gets assigned to, anyway, for various reasons, that's not the case yet. One, I think the hope is that that would be in place next year, perhaps for some. Also, an overriding concern that came out is that for parents, for them to have, parents would really like to see the before and after school care, if not on school grounds, then very, very close to school grounds, which certainly makes it much easier for parents to drop off and pick up their kids. So Julie Austin is the representative from the school district, and she is going to get some more information about that.
On that subject, if I may, Councillor Beal, is the new childcare center in Qualicum Beach out of the woods, is it open yet?
The representative, somebody spoken about, and I understand it's really lovely, but it wasn't 100% clear to me if it's actually open or if it's just opening right now. So it's close to being finished, or it's finished. So it's imminent if it's not already there.
Fair enough. I just, we need more childcare spaces in Oceanside, and so that will help again once that is up and running.
Yeah.
Thank you for your report, and to the next report, please.
Okay, thank you. The next report is the Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber has been very, very busy. First of all, a number of us from council actually did attend a presentation on the role of the Chamber of Commerce and which is to provide advocacy for our local business community, and they do that quite well. They also shared some concerns, and particularly with regard to the increased costs, which could jeopardize our Canada Day parade. So more on that in the future, and hopefully some of those costs can come down for the chamber, as they are the ones who put on that parade. They have not yet, on the negative, they have not yet rebounded to pre-pandemic levels with regard to revenue and engagement, but this is a present goal for them to get back to those pre-pandemic goals. And one of the members of the chamber is in fact our local school district superintendent, and he reported something very positive in that there's an increase in our student graduation rate up of 90%. So that's very good. That's very, very good, actually. And that also has a real positive impact on our community as a whole, both for businesses and generally for our community. A couple of projects of note. One is Delvey, which people may hear about or know about, and that would be the Deliver Vancouver Island. And that's there's a warehouse set up in the industrial park, and that's coming along. It's promising. And also quite exciting, they have managed to work with North Island College to set up a prep cook training program. It will be a 12-week program for 16 students, and they've received a grant to go ahead with that. They're still working out a few details, so it hasn't started yet. And that will, of course, be wonderful, not only for the students taking part, but for our local service and hospitality sector.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. Councillor Martin, would you like to provide your liaison reports, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Oceanside Task Force on Homelessness. This task force is for the whole area, including the RDN and Qualicum. While it is not the city's responsibility to provide housing, it is the provincial government's, which is BC Housing. However, I feel it is my moral responsibility to provide whatever assistance I can to help solve this crisis. I have contacted our MLA, Adam Walker, and I'm consulting with him on a solution. In fact, of course, we heard there was some solutions coming up this evening. There are many things to consider. Thank you. Consider before opening a cold weather shelter. We need an adequate location. We need staff, security, okay from the fire department. There's so many things to be done, and they're actively doing it right now. We heard a report tonight from Sean. My understanding is there will be a suitable location shortly. Food and shelter are basic needs. Providing a shelter seems to be such a simple solution, however, it isn't. There are many complexities. For example, we know not everyone will accept the shelter we provide. And that is something that I understand is really, really hard. So that's all I have to say about homelessness. The Mount Arrowsmith Biosphere region. I attended my first meeting early December via Zoom because of the weather. I learned Parksville is in the exact middle of the biosphere, and the minutes are published on the website. So if anyone wants to hear about the biosphere, they can read the minutes. I'm looking forward to the March meeting, so I'll learn more about it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Anybody else? Sorry, Councillor Fraz. Yes, you have a report, sir.
Yeah, thanks, sir. I'm not on the agenda there. I didn't have it submitted there, but I'll give you just a quick update on the Brant Wildlife Festival. They have a couple things to note. They have a new website that's going to be launching in January. So it'll be exciting to see what they come up with here in the next month. But most importantly, the dates for the festival for 2023 are March through April 9th. And they'll also be having a Hamilton Marsh tour and a Mount Arrowsmith Biosphere Region Bio Blitz the following weekend. The start of the Brant Wildlife Festival, they say, will lift off on March 31st at the Bayside Oceanfront Resort in Parksville. There's going to be live music and guest speakers, and they're inviting the mayor and council out as well to attend. So that'll be March 31st.
Thank you for that report, Councillor Fraz. Is there any other reports under liaisons at this time? Thank you. Great work, all of you. We'll proceed with special business. Now, council, do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that pursuant to section 91.1 of the Community Charter, council proceed to a closed meeting to consider an item relating to discussions with municipal officers and employees respecting municipal objectives, measures, and progress reports for the purposes of preparing an annual report. I have a mover and a seconder to proceed to closed. Councillor Martin, Councillor Gore. All those in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for those of you in attendance. We now have to move into a closed meeting.